My name is James Penniston, United States Air Force retired. In 1980, I was assigned to the largest tactical fighter wing in the Air Force at the time. I was stationed at RAF Woodbridge, England. Shortly after midnight on the 26th of December 1980, Staff Sergeant Steffens briefed me that some lights were seen in Rendlesham Forest, just outside the back gate. He informed me that whatever he seen didn't crash. He told me it landed. I then ordered Airman Kabanczak, A1C Burroughs, to respond with me off-site.
That night, we were on Security 1, which was in charge of mobile security for the Woodbridge base, and we responded to Jim Burroughs' sighting of something out on the edge of the flight line.
The controller on the radio broadcast over the air that go down and check out a possible UFO.
There was a craft of some sort that was sitting just inside the tree line.
When we arrived to the suspected crash site, it quickly became apparent that we were not dealing with a plane crash, or for that matter, anything else we've ever responded to.
Burroughs would say to Jim Penniston, "Do you see that? Do you see what's out there at the edge of the trees?"
It was just bright lights, you know, and the only way you can describe it is, I guess you'd call it an object.
At that point in time, 3 of us had direct observation of the craft.
I then asked Airman Kabanczak to relay the radio transmissions back to our control center. Burroughs and I proceeded towards the craft.
The only noise we heard out in the woods was the noise of the animals.
Just as Burroughs and I entered the tree line, the shape of the craft was defined. The closer we got, the more the white light dissipated, but what appeared was a triangular craft. When we approached it, it was, I say it measured probably about 9 feet long, maybe 6 feet high, a little higher than me, maybe 6.5 feet. The lighting emanated from the fabric of the craft, and it would actually move around. I mean, it would move. You'd have different locations where maybe a little blue lighting was going into it, or maybe a little red. And then there must have been some type of lighting underneath of it, because it silhouetted the aircraft itself. I went around and started doing a 360 walk around the area, recording my observations. I was looking underneath the craft like that. I had taken quite detailed notes on that. Type of aircraft still unknown. No apparent landing gear. No sound, but appears to be pulsating somehow.
Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, there's something there right in front of you. You don't know what it is.
I would go ahead and feel the craft, which was warm. There was static electricity in the air. Very warm to touch. Identifying markings are on left front side. As I came around to the one side of the craft, there was etching on the face me just above the center part of the craft itself. Of course, this is done all freehand as I was walking around the craft, but these symbols ran from left to right across, and then underneath that line of symbols was this, which is triangular, and some type of circle here, some type of circle here, and a larger circle here. And of course, all this was filled in with the etching part of it.
I was curious about the symbols that Jim Penniston copied in his logbook. I had these symbols enlarged and then showed them to cryptologist and mathematician George Daglish. I wanted to know if he had any ideas as to what they might mean.
The first symbol looks to me like a vessel with a steering oar afloat in some sort of medium. The second symbol looks like a glyph associated with a mathematical idea known as the Fibonacci series, which is found everywhere in nature. And this is what we have here. The root of a Fibonacci series, 1, 2, and 3, taken as a whole, which is a rather clever glyph, all in one.
Mr. Daglish stressed that this was only speculation, but I found his interpretations quite interesting, especially since I've always heard that the only universal language would be mathematics.
From that glyph.
So this is the last glyph, and how did you decipher this?
they could represent an apse in an orbit, a perigee or an apogee. And if they are apses, apogees and perigees, it means that the orbiter is doing a highly precessive orbit, like that. So if you were going to survey a planet, and this is an orbiter, I assume, which would be a very sensible arrangement if you were using the vehicle as a surveying vehicle, because you would get a maximum look at the planet. I don't think they were trying to send us a metaphysical message about the beauty of life or the reason for the universe or anything like that, or their own existence. I think it's just more a utilitarian marking so that they knew what craft they were dealing with.
I knew that that craft could not have been made by man. And then it started moving back in between the trees with absolutely no sound, no air disturbance at all. Takeoff, unknown speed, and I write, impossible.
I mean, it was threatening to me, but it wasn't the type that you were going to shoot on. And also the fact was that, what would happen if I would have shot at him? What good would it have done?
That night, over 80 Air Force personnel, all trained observers assigned to the 81st Security Police Squadron, witnessed the takeoff. The information acquired during that investigation was reported through my military channels. The team and witnesses were told to treat the investigation as top secret. Thank you.
As the Deputy Base Commander, Colonel Charles Holt was in charge of the investigation when he, too, became a witness.
In late December 1980, I was called upon to investigate a very strange event, an event that was distracting our security police from their primary duties.
I believe that he went out there to debunk the whole situation, and I think he got in the middle of a situation he couldn't explain either.
2 nights later at the family Christmas party, I was interrupted by the on-duty police commander. He told of strange events and said it was back. Since my boss had to present awards, I was tasked to go out and investigate. I fully expected to find an explanation. During this entire event, I was fortunate to have with me my small pocket recorder. It's a little in there.
What you're about to hear are excerpts from the original recording made that night.
There's no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. There's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. And now we've got an object about 10 degrees directly south, 10 degrees off the horizon. And the ones in the north are moving, one's moving away from us. Moving out fast. There's one on the right side of the wind too. Yeah, we're both heading north. Okay, here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now.
One approached at a very high speed and sent down a strange beam right at our feet.
Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal.
Another object sent down beams of light into the weapons storage area. The whole time we had difficulty communicating with the base, as all 3 radio frequencies that we were using kept breaking up. I have no idea what we saw that night, but I do know with great certainty it was under intelligent control.
Five-star Admiral Lord Hill Norton had been pressuring Parliament to provide clear answers on this case. I wanted to know if he believed a UFO actually landed at a U.S. airbase in England.
That is one explanation, that it actually happened, as Colonel Holt reported. The other explanation is that it didn't. And in that case, one is bound to assume that Colonel Holt and all his men were hallucinating.
The British Ministry of Defence's position is that nothing of any defense interest took place. This position was strongly criticized by the Admiral.
That the colonel of an American Air Force base in Suffolk and his merry men are hallucinating when there are nuclear-armed aircraft on the base must be of defense interest. If indeed what he says took place did take place, and why on earth should he make it up, then surely the entry of a vehicle from outer space, certainly not man-made, to a defense base in this country also cannot fail to be of defense interest.
Outside the Parliament building, I met with Nick Pope. He investigated UFOs officially for the British government.
I reopened the case and conducted a sort of cold case review of the original investigation, and I was shocked to find a series of basic errors had been committed, exactly the same sorts of errors that often fatally undermine a police investigation.